The McDonald's restaurant was buzzing with noise that afternoon. The smell of fries filled the air, and families crowded around the tables, chatting, laughing, and eating their meals. The sound of children's laughter mixed with the beeping machines and the calls of workers behind the counter. Outside, cars rushed past on the busy street, but inside, everyone seemed caught in their own world. In one corner, however, sat a little girl with eyes full of worry. She looked about 10 years old, her hair tied back in a messy ponytail, her small hands clutching the edge of the table. Beside her was a boy, no older than 5 or 6, swinging his legs under the seat. His stomach growled softly, and he looked at his sister with quiet trust, waiting for her to do something. The girl felt a lump in her throat. She had promised her little brother that she would find a way to get him something to eat. Their mother was sick and couldn't work, and they had no money left. For the last 2 days, the girl had tried to be brave, but hunger had grown harder to ignore. Looking at her brother's thin face, she knew she had to act. She stood up and walked toward the line of people waiting for their food. Her heart beat fast, and her hands trembled. She had never done this before. She went up to a woman holding a tray of burgers and asked softly, "Excuse me, can you help us, please?" The woman frowned, muttered something, and walked away. The girl felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She tried again with a man wearing a suit, but he shook his head, not even meeting her eyes. Person after person brushed her off. To most people, she was just another child, someone easy to ignore in a crowded place. She almost gave up, but then, while standing near the counter, her eyes fell on a man who looked familiar. He was tall, dressed simply in jeans and a plain jacket, his hair slightly messy. He stood quietly, waiting for his order, holding a paper receipt in his hand. His presence was calm, almost gentle, unlike the rush of people around him. The girl stared for a moment, then her eyes widened. She recognized him. She had seen his face in movies, posters, even on television. Keanu Reeves? She didn't know much about celebrities, but she knew this man was famous. More importantly, something about the way he stood, patient, humble, kind-looking, gave her courage. Her little brother tugged at her sleeve. "I'm hungry," he whispered. The girl took a deep breath. She knew this was her chance. Even if he said no, she had to try. Slowly, she walked up to him. Her steps were small, and her heart pounded in her chest. She stood in front of him, clutching her hands together, and looked up into his face. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice shaking. "Can you help us, please?" Keanu looked down, surprised by the small voice. He saw the girl's nervous eyes, the way her brother leaned against her leg, and how tired they both looked. He crouched down so he could be at her level. "What's wrong?" he asked gently, his tone soft, as though speaking to a friend. The girl hesitated. Tears stung her eyes, but she tried to speak clearly. "My mom is sick. We don't have money. My brother is hungry. I don't know what to do." For a moment, the busy noise of the restaurant seemed to fade away. Keanu studied the children's faces. He noticed the way the boy clung to his sister, the way the girl tried to be strong even though she was trembling. His heart softened. People around them began to notice the scene. A few recognized Keanu but stayed quiet, curious about what was happening. Keanu gave the girl a small smile. "You're very brave to come and ask for help," he said. "Don't worry. We'll figure this out." The girl's eyes widened. For the first time that day, she felt a flicker of hope. Keanu stood up and walked to the counter. He ordered several meals, enough for the children and more. While waiting, he glanced back at them. The girl was holding her brother's hand tightly, as though afraid this moment might vanish. When the food was ready, Keanu carried the tray himself and brought it to their table. He set it down and smiled at them again. Here you go. Eat as much as you like. The boy's eyes lit up when he saw the fries and burger. He grabbed one quickly, but the girl hesitated. She whispered, "Thank you, sir, thank you so much." Keanu sat down with them, not as a distant celebrity but like a kind stranger who wanted to listen. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emily," she said softly. She pointed to her brother. "And this is Daniel." "Well, Emily and Daniel," Keanu said warmly, "you're not alone. You did the right thing asking for help. You're very strong." Emily felt tears roll down her cheeks. For days, she had felt invisible, carrying a burden far too heavy for her small shoulders. But in that moment, someone saw her. Someone cared. Around the restaurant, people watched in silence. Some looked guilty for ignoring the girl earlier. Others were touched by the way Keanu treated the children with respect, as if they truly mattered. Emily and Daniel ate eagerly, smiling for the first time in days. Keanu stayed with them, chatting softly, making sure they felt safe. To Emily, it felt like a miracle. Little did she know, this meeting was only the beginning. Emily sat across the table, watching her brother eat happily for the first time in days. She felt relief, but her heart was still heavy. She knew food was only one part of the problem. Their mother was lying in a hospital bed, weak and pale, and they had no money to help her. Even with the warm fries and burgers in front of her, the thought of her mother's face made Emily's stomach twist. Keanu noticed the way she pushed her food around instead of eating. He leaned forward a little, lowering his voice so only she and Daniel could hear. "Emily," he said gently, "you seem worried about more than just food. Do you want to tell me what's going on?" Emily's eyes filled with tears again, but this time she didn't hold them back. She spoke softly, almost whispering, afraid that people around might listen. "My mom, she's in the hospital. She's really sick. The doctors said she needs more care, but we don't have money. She worked so hard before, but then she got sick and couldn't anymore. I try to take care of my brother, but I don't know what to do." Keanu stayed quiet, listening carefully. He didn't interrupt or rush her. His eyes stayed kind, showing her he really cared about every word. Daniel, too young to fully understand, continued munching on fries but looked at his sister when her voice cracked. Emily wiped her face quickly with the back of her hand. "I didn't want to bother anyone. But today Daniel was so hungry, and I didn't know who else to ask. Everyone just walked away." Her voice trembled. "I was scared no one would listen." Keanu gave her a small, reassuring nod. "You were very brave to ask. That takes courage, Emily. And you're not bothering me at all. You did the right thing." For a moment, Emily felt safe, like someone had placed a warm blanket over her worries. She looked at him, surprised that a stranger, especially someone she knew was famous, would take time to speak so kindly. Around them, a few customers who recognized Keanu began whispering, pointing quietly, but he ignored the attention. His focus was only on the two children. He asked softly, "Which hospital is your mom in?" Emily blinked, unsure if she should answer. She hesitated, then said, "County General Hospital. She's been there for a week. They said she might need surgery, but we can't pay. I don't know how long she'll stay there. We've just been staying at home, and sometimes here, trying to keep busy." Keanu nodded again, absorbing every detail. "I see. And where's your dad?" Emily's eyes lowered. "He left a long time ago. It's just me, Daniel, and Mom." There was silence for a moment. Keanu's heart ached. He had grown up knowing what it felt like to face hardship, and he could see the strength it took for this little girl to carry so much on her shoulders. He smiled gently at Daniel, who was now sipping from a soda cup with both hands, then turned back to Emily. "You've been very strong for your brother. He's lucky to have you." Emily felt her cheeks warm. No adult had told her that before. She had always tried to be strong, but sometimes she felt like a child herself who needed help. Hearing those words from him gave her a sense of pride she didn't know she had. Keanu sat back, thinking for a moment. Most people in his position might have handed the girl some money and gone on with their day. But he didn't believe kindness stopped there. He believed that if life gave you the chance to truly help, you should do it. "Emily," he said softly, "I want you and Daniel to eat all you can. Don't worry about the bill, I've taken care of it. After you finish, I'd like to talk more about how I can help your mom." Her eyes widened. "You'd help my mom?" "Yes," he said with calm certainty. "No one should go through something like this alone. Let's see what we can do." Emily covered her mouth with her small hands, holding back a sob. She felt something she hadn't felt in weeks: hope. For the next half hour, Keanu stayed with them. He let Daniel tell him silly stories about his favorite cartoons and nodded along with genuine interest. He asked Emily about school, about her favorite subjects, and she shyly admitted she loved to read. The more she talked, the more her nervousness faded. It was as if she were speaking to an old friend, not a world-famous actor. People in the restaurant watched quietly. Some pulled out their phones, but most simply sat in awe. They saw a man known around the world for his movies taking time to listen to two children no one else had noticed. Eventually, Emily pushed her tray away, full at last, though her eyes still held worry. Keanu noticed. He reached across the table, resting his hand gently on the table's edge, not too close, just enough to make her feel heard. "I want you to know something," he said kindly. "Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. Because you were brave enough to speak, now I know your story. And now, we can find a way forward together." Emily nodded, biting her lip to stop it from trembling. She believed him. For the first time in a long while, she truly believed someone cared. Daniel leaned against his sister's arm, his little eyes starting to close after finishing his meal. Keanu smiled softly at the sight. "Why don't we get you both home after this? You shouldn't be carrying all this alone." Emily hesitated. "But Mom's at the hospital." "Then we'll go there," Keanu said without pause. "You and Daniel should see her, and I'd like to visit too, if that's okay." Emily's eyes widened again. "You'd really come to the hospital?" "Yes," he said simply. "If your mom is fighting to get better, she shouldn't do it without support. Let's go together." At that moment, something shifted inside Emily. She felt the heavy stone of fear and loneliness she had been carrying start to lift. She didn't know what the future held, but sitting there with her brother safe and full, and Keanu offering a hand of kindness, she felt hope like sunlight breaking through clouds. The world outside the McDonald's kept moving, cars honked, people hurried along the sidewalks, but at that table, time seemed to pause. It was a moment of pure humanity, where one person's simple choice to listen and care began to change the direction of a child's life. And as Keanu Reeves stood up and guided them toward the door, with Daniel sleepily holding his sister's hand, the customers who had once ignored the little girl watched in silence. They realized they had witnessed something rare, not a movie scene, not an act for the cameras, but a moment of real compassion. Emily looked up at Keanu as they stepped outside into the afternoon light. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. Keanu smiled gently, his eyes kind. "No need to thank me. We're just getting started." Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a much bigger change that would ripple far beyond that single afternoon. The sun was beginning to lower in the sky as Keanu stepped outside the McDonald's with Emily and her younger brother, Daniel. The warm afternoon light touched their faces, but the weight of worry still hung in the air. Emily held Daniel's small hand tightly as they walked alongside Keanu, unsure if what was happening was real. She had begged strangers before and been ignored, yet now, someone she had only seen on posters and movies was beside her, treating her as though she mattered. Daniel rubbed his eyes sleepily, his stomach full at last. "Are we going to see Mom now?" he asked in a soft voice. "Yes, buddy," Keanu said kindly, bending down to Daniel's height. "We'll go see your mom together. Does that sound good?" Daniel nodded with a faint smile, then clung to his sister's side. Emily's heart was still racing. She wasn't sure what to say or how to act. She had expected maybe a few coins or a quick meal, not this. She glanced up at Keanu nervously. "Are you sure you want to come with us? You must be busy." Keanu gave a small laugh, shaking his head. "Some things are more important than being busy. Right now, your family is what matters." Those words stayed in Emily's mind like an echo. For so long, she had felt invisible, carrying her problems quietly. Hearing someone say her family mattered felt like being seen for the first time. They walked a few blocks until Keanu's assistant, who had arrived after his call, pulled up in a black car. The assistant, a kind-looking woman with glasses, opened the door and greeted the children warmly. "Hi there, you must be Emily and Daniel. Hop in, we'll go see your mom." Emily hesitated at first, but Keanu gave her a reassuring nod. "It's safe. She works with me." Inside the car, Daniel rested his head against his sister's shoulder, slowly drifting toward sleep. Emily, however, stayed wide awake, her eyes darting between Keanu and the city rushing past the windows. She wondered if this was all a dream, one she would wake from back in the corner of the restaurant with her brother still hungry. Keanu noticed her silence. "What's your mom like?" he asked gently. Emily's face softened at the thought. She's amazing. She used to work 2 jobs just to take care of us. She always made sure we had food, even if she didn't eat. She loves to sing, even when she was tired. But now she's so weak. The doctors said she needs surgery, but," her voice broke. "But we can't pay for it." Keanu leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "Emily, your mom sounds like a very strong woman. And I want you to know something. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. We're going to help her." Emily blinked at him, tears filling her eyes again. She had heard empty promises before, but something in his steady voice made her believe him. When they arrived at County General Hospital, the tall building loomed above them with bright lights and sliding glass doors. Emily gently shook Daniel awake, and they followed Keanu inside. Nurses and visitors passed by, and some people turned their heads in surprise when they recognized him. But Keanu walked calmly, one hand resting lightly on Emily's shoulder as if guiding her. At the reception desk, Emily nervously told the nurse her mother's name. The nurse nodded and gave directions to her room. As they walked down the long hallway, Emily's heart thudded in her chest. She hadn't expected anyone to walk these halls with her except Daniel. Yet now, she wasn't alone. When they entered the room, Emily's mother was lying in bed, pale but awake. Her tired eyes brightened the moment she saw her children. "Emily, Daniel," she whispered, her voice weak but full of love. Daniel rushed to her side and hugged her tightly. Emily held back her tears as she kissed her mother's hand. "Mom, look who's here," she said, glancing nervously at Keanu. Her mother's eyes widened slightly in surprise. She knew his face, everyone did. "Mr. Reeves?" she asked softly, confused. Keanu smiled kindly and stepped closer to the bed. "Yes, ma'am. But you can just call me Keanu. Your daughter asked me for help today, and I wanted to meet you." Tears welled in the mother's eyes. She looked at Emily, then back at Keanu. "She's been so strong. Too strong for her age." Keanu nodded gently. She has. But no child should have to carry so much. The mother's lips trembled as she whispered, "The doctors, they said I need surgery, but I can't afford it. I've been praying for a miracle, but," her voice trailed off, heavy with hopelessness. Keanu pulled a chair close and sat down, leaning forward. "Ma'am, I want you to focus on one thing: getting better. Let me worry about the rest. I'll make sure you get the care you need." The room went silent. Emily stared at him, her mouth slightly open, unsure if she had heard correctly. Daniel, too young to understand the full weight of his words, simply hugged his mother tighter. The mother shook her head in disbelief. "Why would you do that? You don't even know us." Keanu's voice was calm and sincere. "Because sometimes, the right thing to do is help. You've worked hard for your children. Now it's your turn to rest and heal. Let me do this." Tears slipped down the mother's cheeks as she nodded slowly, overcome with gratitude she couldn't put into words. Emily squeezed her mother's hand tightly, her heart swelling with hope she hadn't felt in months. Over the next hour, Keanu spoke with the doctors. He asked clear questions, wanting to know exactly what the surgery required and how soon it could be done. The medical team, surprised at his involvement, explained everything in detail. Keanu didn't hesitate. He told them he would cover the costs. Meanwhile, Emily sat by her mother, whispering softly, "Mom, it's really happening. He's going to help us." Her mother stroked her hair weakly, whispering back, "It's a blessing, Emily. You were brave, and now help has found us." By evening, everything had been arranged. The doctors assured them that surgery could happen soon, and recovery would follow. Emily's mother smiled through her tears, thanking Keanu over and over. He simply waved his hand, saying, "No thanks needed. Just focus on getting stronger." As the night settled in, Keanu prepared to leave, promising to return the next day. Emily walked with him to the hospital doors, Daniel holding her other hand. She looked up at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked quietly. Keanu paused for a moment, looking at her with warmth. "Because kindness can change lives, Emily. And today, you reminded me of that." Emily's chest filled with something she hadn't felt in a long time: not just hope, but trust in the goodness of people. She knew her life and her family's life were already changing in ways she could never have imagined. As Keanu stepped into the night, Emily stood in the doorway with her brother by her side. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel small or invisible. She felt seen, cared for, and safe. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a ripple effect that would reach far beyond the walls of that hospital. The next morning, Emily woke up early in the hospital chair beside her mother's bed. Daniel was curled up under a blanket on her lap, breathing softly. The sound of machines beeping gently filled the quiet room. For a moment, she thought everything that happened yesterday might have been a dream. But then she looked at her mother, who was smiling faintly, and remembered Keanu's words. He had promised to come back. Emily's heart still carried doubt. People had made promises before and disappeared. What if this was the same? What if he didn't return? She brushed Daniel's hair with her fingers, trying to calm her restless thoughts. Just then, the door opened, and a familiar figure stepped inside. Keanu walked in, carrying 2 paper bags with breakfast. His simple jacket and calm smile made the room feel brighter instantly. Emily's eyes widened in relief, and her mother whispered softly, "He came back." Keanu set the bags on the table and greeted them warmly. "Good morning, Emily." "Good morning, Daniel," he said, gently tapping the little boy's shoulder to wake him. Daniel stirred, rubbing his eyes, and when he saw Keanu, he smiled sleepily. "You're here," Emily said softly, her voice filled with surprise. "Of course," Keanu replied with a nod. "I told you we're in this together now." He unpacked the food: warm pancakes, eggs, and juice. Eat up. You'll need energy for today. The doctors are going to talk to us about your mom's surgery plans. Emily and Daniel ate eagerly, while Keanu sat with their mother, speaking quietly. The mother still struggled to believe this was real. I don't know how to thank you, she said weakly. You don't have to, Keanu replied gently. Just focus on getting well. Your children need you strong again. Later, the doctor entered with a folder of papers. He explained the procedure, the risks, and the recovery process. Emily tried to listen, but most of the words felt too big, too complicated. She looked at Keanu nervously. He leaned forward, asking questions slowly, making sure everything was explained in simple terms. How long will the recovery take? What kind of care will she need afterward? Will her children be able to stay with her? He didn't let a single detail slip past. Emily watched in awe. Here was someone who didn't just throw money at the problem. He wanted to understand, to make sure her mother truly had the best chance. It was as if he had taken her family's burden onto his own shoulders. The doctor confirmed that the surgery would take place the next day. Emily's mother squeezed her daughter's hand, whispering, "It's finally happening, Emily. We have hope now." For the rest of the day, Keanu stayed close. He made phone calls quietly in the hallway, arranging for extra support. Nurses treated him with respect, but he never acted above anyone else. When Daniel grew restless, Keanu walked him down to the hospital garden, letting him chase butterflies and breathe in fresh air. Emily followed, watching how gentle and patient he was with her little brother. At one point, Daniel tugged on Keanu's hand and asked innocently, "Are you a superhero?" Keanu chuckled softly. "No, buddy, I'm not a superhero. I'm just someone who believes in helping when I can." "But you saved us," Daniel said with simple honesty. Keanu knelt down, meeting his eyes. Sometimes saving someone doesn't mean fighting bad guys. It just means being there when they need you. And right now, that's what I'm doing. Emily listened quietly, her heart swelling with admiration. She realized he wasn't helping for attention or praise. He was helping because it was the right thing to do. News began to spread inside the hospital. Staff whispered about how Keanu Reeves had not only paid for a patient's surgery but was also spending time with her children, treating them like family. Some nurses admitted they had never seen a celebrity act so humble. One of them told Emily, "You're lucky, sweetheart. Not many people would do what he's doing." Emily smiled shyly. "We are lucky, but I think it's more than luck. I think he really cares." That evening, Keanu sat with Emily while Daniel colored on a piece of paper the nurses had given him. "Emily," he said softly, "once your mom has surgery, she'll need rest. That means you shouldn't have to worry about food or school. I've arranged some support for you and Daniel: safe housing, meals, and help with school. You don't have to figure it all out alone anymore." Emily's eyes filled with tears again. "You've already done so much. Why are you doing even more?" Keanu looked at her with gentle seriousness. "Because when life gives you the chance to help someone, you don't stop halfway. You go all the way. That's how real change happens." Emily nodded slowly, her heart heavy with gratitude she couldn't put into words. For so long, she had carried fear like a shadow. Now, for the first time, she felt a light breaking through. The night before the surgery, Keanu stayed until late, making sure everything was ready. He spoke with Emily's mother, encouraging her to stay strong. Before leaving, he told Emily, "I'll be here tomorrow morning when your mom goes in. You won't go through it alone." Emily believed him. She tucked Daniel into the hospital cot provided for visitors and sat by her mother, whispering, "Mom, can you believe it? He's really helping us. Everything is going to be okay." Her mother stroked her hair weakly. You were brave, Emily. You asked for help. That bravery brought him to us. Don't ever forget that. The next morning, true to his word, Keanu arrived early. He walked with the doctors as they wheeled Emily's mother toward the operating room. Emily clung to his side, her hands trembling. I'm scared, she whispered. He knelt down, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. It's okay to be scared. But your mom is in good hands. And I'll be right here with you until she's back. Emily nodded, gripping Daniel's small hand as tightly as she could. Hours passed slowly in the waiting room. Emily sat nervously, her foot tapping against the floor. Daniel fell asleep with his head on her lap. Keanu sat nearby, calm but watchful, occasionally bringing her water or asking if she wanted to step outside for air. Every minute felt like an hour. But through it all, Emily felt less alone. Keanu's steady presence was like an anchor, keeping her from sinking into fear. Finally, after what felt like forever, the doctor returned with a tired smile. The surgery went well. She's stable. With rest and care, she'll recover. Emily gasped, her eyes flooding with tears. She hugged Daniel tightly, whispering, Mom's going to be okay. Keanu smiled, relief showing in his eyes too. See? I told you. She's strong. The three of them walked together to the recovery room, where Emily's mother lay, pale but breathing steadily. Emily rushed to her side, holding her hand. You did it, Mom. You're going to get better. Her mother's lips curved into the faintest smile. She whispered, Thank you, looking toward Keanu. He simply nodded, brushing it aside. Rest now. That's all that matters. For Emily, that moment felt like the world had shifted. What started as a desperate plea in a fast food restaurant had grown into something far greater. Her family wasn't just surviving anymore. They had hope, support, and a future that once seemed impossible. And it was all because one man chose to listen to a little girl's trembling voice and decided to act. The days after the surgery felt like a new chapter for Emily and Daniel. Their mother, though weak, was smiling again, something Emily had not seen in weeks. The beeping machines no longer sounded frightening but instead felt like proof of life and recovery. Every time her mother opened her eyes and spoke softly, Emily's heart filled with joy. Keanu continued to visit, keeping his quiet promise. He never came with cameras or reporters, never sought attention. He simply arrived with a warm smile, food for the children, or flowers for their mother. For the hospital staff, it became a gentle sight, the world-famous actor sitting by a bedside, listening to a sick woman's stories, or kneeling on the floor to color pictures with a little boy. For Emily, his presence was more than kindness. It was safety. Each time he appeared, she felt the heavy weight of fear lift off her shoulders. She no longer felt like she had to be both mother and sister at once. She could finally be a child again, holding hope in her hands. One evening, as the sun painted the sky with shades of orange, Emily sat beside her mother's bed while Daniel played with toy cars on the floor. Keanu leaned against the windowsill, watching the sky quietly. Emily turned to him with curiosity. Do you always help people like this? She asked softly. He smiled faintly, his eyes thoughtful. I try to. Sometimes life gives you a chance to change something for the better. And when it does, I don't want to ignore it. Emily tilted her head. But you don't even know us. I know enough, he replied gently. I know your mom worked hard. I know you've been brave beyond your years. I know your brother trusts you more than anyone. That's enough to know you're worth helping. Emily looked down at her hands, touched deeply. For so long, she had thought they were invisible, their struggles unseen. Now someone had not only noticed but had chosen to stand beside them. As the week passed, their mother grew stronger. The doctors were pleased with her recovery, saying she would be able to go home soon. Emily's heart leapt at the thought of returning home with her mom, but she also worried. Their small apartment was still uncertain, bills still unpaid. Keanu noticed her troubled expression one morning and asked, "What's on your mind, Emily?" She hesitated before whispering, "When mom comes home, will everything go back to being hard again?" Keanu's gaze softened. He understood her fear. "No, Emily. It won't. I've already arranged a safe place for you, close to your school and with support for your family. You don't have to face those worries anymore. Your only job now is to be a child, to laugh, learn, and dream." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She had never heard those words before. She nodded slowly, a smile breaking through the fear. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice shaking. The day their mother was discharged became a celebration. Nurses and doctors gathered to see them off, touched by the story that had unfolded before their eyes. Emily's mother, though weak, walked slowly out of the hospital with her children on either side, Keanu supporting her carefully. Outside, the air smelled fresh and sweet, as if even the city itself was welcoming them back to life. Daniel clapped his hands excitedly. "We're all going home together." Keanu smiled at him. "Yes, buddy. Together." What Emily didn't know at the time was that a few customers from McDonald's who had seen her begging that first day had shared the story online. They wrote about how Keanu Reeves had stepped in to help a little girl and her brother. Pictures began circulating, not staged by him but captured quietly by strangers. Soon, the story spread across social media, reaching people around the world. But Keanu never spoke about it. When asked later in interviews, he brushed the topic aside, saying, "It wasn't about me. It was about helping a family who needed it." For Emily, however, the impact was beyond words. Her life had shifted completely. She no longer felt alone or forgotten. Her mother's health was improving, her brother was safe, and she herself was free to return to school with hope for the future. Weeks later, Emily sat at her new desk in a classroom, her books neatly arranged. For the first time in months, she felt excited to learn. Her teacher smiled at her, welcoming her back warmly. At recess, she played with friends without the heavy worry she used to carry. Daniel too found joy again, laughing as he played in the park near their new home. Their mother, though still healing, sang softly while cooking simple meals, her voice filling the house with the comfort they had missed. And through it all, Keanu remained in touch, not as a distant celebrity but as a quiet guardian in the background. He checked in on their progress, sent support when needed, and encouraged Emily to keep dreaming. One evening, Emily sat at the small table in their home, holding a notebook. She had been practicing her writing, and now she carefully wrote a letter. Her words were simple but full of heart. "Dear Keanu, thank you for listening to me when no one else would. Thank you for feeding us, for helping my mom, and for showing me that kindness is real. You are my hero. Not because you are famous, but because you cared. I will never forget what you did for us. Love, Emily." She folded the letter neatly and gave it to his assistant the next time they visited. When Keanu read the letter later that night, he smiled softly. He didn't need awards or praise. The words of a 10-year-old girl meant more than any headline ever could. For Emily and her family, life was no longer a story of struggle and despair. It was a story of hope, love, and the power of one person choosing to care. The memory of that day in McDonald's would always stay with her, the moment when, out of all the strangers she asked, one man chose to stop, listen, and act. It was proof that even in a busy, noisy world, kindness could still shine through and change everything. And as the years passed, Emily often told the story, not with sadness but with gratitude. She would look at her brother, now growing tall and strong, and remind him, "Remember the day we met him? Remember how everything changed?" Daniel would grin and nod. "Yes, I remember. he's our real-life hero. And in that simple truth lay the lesson that would guide Emily all her life, that kindness, no matter how small, had the power to change lives forever.